When I was a young social justice warrior at university, I had a few core beliefs. 1. Eating animals or using any animal product was akin to rape and murder. 2. Islam was a religion of peace. 3. Anyone from the developing world was inherently virtuous, and the prosperous West was inherently evil. 4. Gender was a social construct, obviously. And 5. Australia was an irredeemably racist nation, and that Australia Day was nothing more than a colonial relic that had to go. For me, the biggest milestone was in 2017, when my then beloved Triple J radio station stopped hosting the Hottest 100 on January 26th. That was the nail in the coffin. From then on, celebrating Australia Day became entirely outside the Overton window within my milieu of university-educated friends and colleagues. It's safe to say that I've changed a lot since my university days, as anyone familiar with Quillette and my work would know. But even so, until this year, I felt a little in the closet about celebrating Australia Day. Last Australia Day, I simply went down to Bondi Beach to have a swim when I noticed something weird. There wasn't a single Australian flag. Waving the Australian flag, at least in Australian cities, has become a massive taboo, almost akin to being a neo-Nazi. Even my father, proudly displaying an Australian flag in our front yard, was asked by a friend's wife, "Why do you have that swastika in your front yard?" I'm being serious. Another example, after October 7th, I attended a rally for Israel where I saw a man wearing an iconic red cap. I initially assumed it was a MAGA cap, but on closer inspection it actually said "Make Australia Great Again." Once I read it, I complimented him on it, but moments later he was questioned by police. I can only assume it was because he was a white male alone in a Trump-style cap. In 2022, Cricket Australia initially avoided referencing Australia Day during its iconic matches, only to backtrack after public outcry. And in 2017, councils in Fremantle, Yarra and Darebin stopped hosting Australian citizenship ceremonies on January 26th, promoting backlash from the then Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull. Retailers have also waded in. Last year, Woolworths said it would no longer stock Australia Day merchandise, only to reverse that decision a few weeks ago. So it looks like Woolworths feels the vibe shift of 2025. And it's not just them. I've spoken to people around the world who sense it too. Niall Ferguson senses it, as he wrote in The Australian. Without us even realising it, it feels like celebrating Australia Day is becoming more acceptable again. And it's not just the holiday itself, it's what it represents. Increasingly, not only Australians but many in the West are refusing to feign guilt for who we are. The years of shaming white colonists have lost their grip. I'm not saying the shaming will stop. What I'm saying is that it no longer wields the power it once did. Ferguson argues that this vibe shift is thanks to Donald Trump's re-election, and I tend to agree. His victory signaled that ordinary Americans want to prioritise their country and are tired of woke ideology and its shame-driven identity politics. No doubt, Australia Day will see protests. Your social media will be full of keffiyeh-clad art students led by their supreme leader, Lydia Thorpe, calling it Invasion Day. But I'd bet good money that this year in Bondi Beach we will see more people decked out in Aussie flags than last year. As Pascal Bruckner wrote in perhaps my favourite Quillette essay, Europe, and I would argue Australia as well, is consumed by guilt. Unlike the US, which severed its ties with Europe, Australia remains tethered to the monarchy and its perceived ills. Some Australian Republicans think that cutting ties with the monarchy will cure us of this guilt, but anyone familiar with the far left, and as I said, I was part of it, knows that nothing will ever be enough. Even if we became a republic, created Sorry Day, which we already did, changed the date of Australia Day, voted yes to the Indigenous voice and renamed every town and river with Aboriginal names, it still would not satisfy the insatiable demands of woke ideologues. Like dealing with an abusive partner, the only solution is to have some self-respect and refuse to be denigrated. There are malevolent actors out there. For example, Iran would love to see us destroyed. Tehran's billboards don't just call for death to Israel, but also death to the United States and the West in general. You can't placate abusers or politely request respect. The only option is to demand it and present consequences for non-compliance. For an abusive movement, the consequence is to stop playing their game. Stop trying to placate them by removing Australia Day products from shelves or changing the date. As Pascal Bruckner said of Europe, either it becomes a convincing world player or it will be dismembered by hungry predators waiting to devour it piece by piece. It is therefore imperative that we retain our self-confidence as combative Occidentals, convinced of the uniqueness of our contributions to civilization and who make no excuses for our existence. The same applies to Australia. We're still a young country, and while our national identity may not be as firmly established as America's or Europe's, we share a clear foundation in a Judeo-Christian moral framework that emphasizes the value of human life, freedom, and individuality. There's much to be proud of. Having traveled extensively, I can confidently say there's nowhere else I'd rather call home. Of course, we're not without our challenges. Tall poppy syndrome, an underwhelming culinary scene, and ongoing challenges in education, labour productivity, and housing affordability. And yes, Indigenous Australians do face serious and complex issues, but these cannot be reduced to a simple narrative of blame on white colonisation. Changing the date of our national holiday won't magically improve life expectancy, health outcomes, or educational attainment for Indigenous communities. So this Australia Day, for the first time in years, I'll be celebrating, and guess what? I'm not ashamed. In fact, I'm organising a party for Quillette in Adelaide, the hometown of our founder, Claire Lehman. You're welcome to join us. It's going to be fantastic. Head to Quillette.com to grab yourself tickets, and hopefully I'll see you there, celebrating our fantastic country on our national holiday, the 26th of January. This video is based on an essay I wrote, which was published in The Australian on Wednesday, the 15th of January. You can read it on The Australian's website. And let me know in the comments. I'm not 100% opposed to changing the date, but as I've said, I don't think it's helpful to give in to the demands of virtue signaling bullies. It doesn't get us anywhere. But that's not to say that there aren't some good reasons to change the date. If you've got some, let me know in the comments section. Thanks for watching.